Hello, 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 everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. I am in a smoking hot office and I have a fan on in the background and I have a tank top on. So we're keeping cool. We got ice water. We're good to go, right? Okay, well, I am super stoked to be here because I finally get to release what I feel like I've been working on for the past, oh no, not feel, it actually has been 6 months. So I'm so excited to kind of chat with you, talk about what we've done, talk about what we haven't done, and hopefully just give you guys the confidence and the boost to kick this exam's booty, right? Okay, so just want to get a little bit of a temperature of who is here. So could you please tell me if you have registered for a date, which month it is? So if you've done October, November, whatever it is, can you type it in the chat box? There's quite a few of you here. Okay, November, March, January, November, March, October, maybe January. Okay, lots of Novembers. Lots of Marches too. Okay, well, I'm not sure if I am a new face to anyone, but I will quickly introduce myself. My name is Caitlin Proctor. I created PT Exam Prep along with the help of a lot of other physios. I'm just kind of the face, to be honest. And yeah, pretty much my role, and literally, I'm going to say my main role as of the last 6 months has been just trying to create this course for you. So I'm going to be super transparent about our whole process. I'm going to answer any questions you have. And yeah, here we go. So let's talk about what we know so far, because that's great. Knowing things is wonderful. So right now we know that we have multiple dates starting in October into 2023. Okay, we know that this is going to be the exam for a long time coming, right? There's a few other things that we know. So we know that this exam will be based on the blueprint and the essential competency profile, or the domains. Who has seen the essential competency profile or the domains before? Anyone know what I'm talking about when I say this? Lots of you have. It's confusing, hey? Just a little bit. So I'm going to show you the blueprint. This is the blueprint that the OCE has released. The blueprint has, I'm going to say like 80% of what is on the normal CAPR blueprint. They have peeled away a few things, not very much, but this is what the blueprint looks like, just a little snapshot of the other section. Whole bunch of other stuff though. And these are the domains. The domains are giving you kind of these professional competencies that you should have, okay? I will say that throughout this course, these two things have been huge for us. The blueprint, not so much. I feel like the blueprint is kind of useless, but the domains have been kind of the guiding factor to every scenario that we are putting in this course. We want to make sure they're touching one of these domains, okay? Okay, so we know it's a two-part exam. We know that part 1 is going to have 2 cases, and we know that part 2 is going to have 11 vignettes. So of those cases, we know that 2 cases will be presented on different clinical and practice scenarios. You will need to analyze the scenario and respond. Each will follow a standard template, and at least one of these cases will be MSK. We also know that the first case is going to cover these kind of things, and then the second case is going to cover a little bit more treatment planning. So how many of you have seen the case that the CAPR posted? Okay, not a ton. I'm going to give you about a minute to read through this, okay? I want you to take a read, and then I want you to give me an initial confidence, 10 being like so confident, I know I'd kill this station, and 0 being like, I'm so scared, I'm running away from this exam. I want you to tell me what your confidence is. You don't have to tell me what you do, just tell me what your confidence level is, okay? So here you go, 1 minute. Wonderful. I love seeing those numbers. Those numbers are really good. Honestly, I probably, the first time I read this would have been like a 7 as well. I feel like it is a little bit tricky. But ultimately, this case is showing you that we need to have a good understanding of clinical reasoning, figuring out what our priorities are. If this were me doing this on the exam, for sure, my big priority would be getting this person back to being independent at home or in his retirement facility, right? That would be my main, the most important information I could possibly get is to figure out how could I see if maybe he needs some sort of mobility aid, what kind of strength do they have so that we could get them back to being home, right? Okay, that's part one. Let's go on to part two. So part two is a short 1-paragraph situation for each of the 11 topics. And it will be using your application of the standards, code of ethics, critical reasoning. You will be asked these 11 or vignettes on these 11 topics, okay? There's some ones that are beautifully aligned with the practice resources from Ontario, and there's ones that contain like potentially a bunch of the practice standards, right? So take a look at those. Hopefully none of this is new to you, but if it is, you can see them here. This is the information that we know so far. We have one last case scenario that they gave us, and that is this. You are an owner of a gym. Someone offers you a monthly, or sorry, the owner of a gym offers you a monthly membership to their gym in exchange for you referring clients. Can't talk. The gym is in the same building as your clinic, and the monthly membership is valued at $75. In this scenario, what concerns do you have? After you provide your answer to the question above, the examiner may ask you some follow-up questions. So how would you proceed in this situation? Explain why you would take this action, and tell me the conversation you would have with that owner. How confident do we feel with this question? Again, 0, you're running away. 10, like you're ready to go into the station and nail it. Okay, so actually pretty even across the board. I would say a lot of you are still a little hesitant. All righty, so now that we know what we know, let's talk about what do you need to know for the OCE after we've kind of seen those. So first and foremost, I think you need to know content from any area of physio for part one. It really does draw on your clinical experience. It draws on pretty much everything you got examined on the written, right? It's an incredibly wide range of materials that could be tested. I really do think this is a tough, part one is tough. There is a lot of stuff that you need to know to get through this section, potentially, right? Like literally, they could ask you anything. They could ask you about an ankle sprain. They could ask you about a spinal cord injury. Like you are pretty much prepping like you were for the written. Your focus will be on your understanding of pathologies, how you would treat them, and your clinical reasoning around this. A lot of these questions are going to be things like, you don't need to perform a joint mobilization. We don't care exactly where your hands are. Rather, you need to describe the steps that you would take. So this is what I call an I would exam, right? I would do this objective measure. I would do this, okay? Now, part two, you need a strong understanding of practice standards and how they apply to day-to-day life, right? You also have to have a very specific understanding of the scenarios and how to proceed and kind of your guiding factors around these scenarios, okay? You need to be very good at describing what would you do, right? Here's a scenario, what would you do? And you need to think pretty quick to be able to do these. Tough, right? It is tough. So now let's talk about our prep course. What the heck are we going to offer you? So our OCE prep course has 3 components to it. So part 1, we have case prep for the OCE. Part 2, we have vignette prep for the OCE. And then our part 3 is going to be a live one-on-one 3-hour mock Ontario clinical exam. Okay, so this is what we are hoping to provide to you. And I say hoping because I'm going to tell you one more layer here. That is part 1, the case prep. It is not ready yet. If I'm being totally transparent with you, I've been working on this thing for a very, very long time, and I just don't feel like I've nailed it yet. It's really hard for me to say that. It's really hard for me to accept that I'm not ready to give it to you yet. And again, when I say there are so many people that are involved in this process, but I'm the face of this, and I'm hoping that it will be ready at the end of October, potentially a little bit earlier. I'll get it to you as soon as I can. But again, this is not perfect. And I am a freaking perfectionist to a fault. I'm just not ready to give that part to you yet. Part 2. When I saw the practice station come out for part 2, I was like, my goodness, this is literally a question from our course. I felt so excited and so good. And that was kind of like the absolute thing I needed to be like, let's release part 2. It's a little bit potentially backwards because it's part 2 versus part 1, but it's really not. It's just one or the other. And I feel so confident that part 2 is going to make you very, very prepared. Okay. So what do we have in part 2? So in part 2, we have over 170 practice scenarios with detailed feedback. And I'll show you the course. You're going to get to see the course so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. We have content that covers every scenario that we could think of that could be asked on those 11 content areas. We have broken down the Ontario College standards and resources. Remember, there's a difference between standards and resources on the website. We have gone through that. I'll talk a little bit more about our process too, but ultimately, I feel very, very confident in this course. Then the next part that we are definitely ready for too is our live one-on-one 3-hour mock Ontario clinical exam. Now, this was a really tough decision for me because in order to do something one-on-one and in order to do something for so long, 3 hours, there's pretty high costs associated with this of just paying a physio, right? We know what physios cost. We're not cheap, which is good because, we don't want to be cheap. But ultimately, to have a physio there with you and give you feedback, a person that is trained on all these scenarios, this is the expensive part of the course, okay? So this is 3 hours long. It's just you and your teacher. We thought about doing groups of 3 and 2 and how we could possibly bring the cost down for you. But ultimately, we feel that the most important thing is you get through this exam and you get some one-on-one feedback. So you will be tested on part 1 in this mock OCE, okay? It's easy for me to think of 5 to 10 cases for the mock, but in order to get you ready for part 1, you need a hell of a lot more cases than 5 to 10 prepared for you. And I'm just not there yet, but we are definitely going to assess your knowledge of that part 1 component in the mock OCE. So you will be tested on case 1 and case 2. You will then be tested on 4 to 5 of the 11 vignette questions in your mock, okay? So you will receive individualized feedback. You will also receive a report card, what you did well, what you need to improve on, some practice questions that we think you should focus on, okay? So the idea behind this course is that you prep using part 2 as much as you can, and then when you are ready, you will book your live one-on-one. Okay. I am going to show you a little bit into our course here. I pre-recorded this because, it's just sometimes hard to do everything great on the spot. So I pre-recorded this. So take a look inside our part 2 course. Okay, let's show you the online classroom. So this is what it'll look like when you log into your part 2 classroom, vignettes for the OCE. So as you can see, we've gone through every aspect of those 11 vignette questions. So in order to do that, we've gone through all the standards from the Ontario College as well as all of the resources, okay? So what you're going to find is all along here is where all the content or all the knowledge that you need to learn is. So let's go through, if we think about that question about the gym owner having a monthly membership in exchange for referring clients. So if you go to some of the sections in this idea, that's a conflict of interest. We'll go here, you can learn about what a conflict of interest is, and you will kind of go through all the different content areas to make sure you can answer all questions around this. So we kind of go over the definition, some keys to avoiding it, and some key points. It's important to note that physios cannot benefit or give benefits for a patient referral. Referrals need to be based on needs. The proper way to offer a referral is to provide a range of options. So again, that was conflict of interest. I'll show you a good practice scenario there, but some other ones I guess that'd be kind of fun to show you is maybe some commonly seen professional issues. So we talk about disclosure, how to deal with gifts, how to deal with treating family, so on. It's all
all there. And again, that's for each of these content areas. So tons and tons of information in here. Like it's a lot. Yeah. Okay, so then you'll scroll down and you'll get to your vignette questions. So those are those 11 content areas that you're going to go through. We'll go to conflict resolution. We'll pick a scenario that is literally just like what they posted for their practice scenario. So a new physio clinic focuses on neurorehabilitation, has recently opened, and the owner is looking for ways to attract new patients. She decides to head to the outpatient rehab facility at one of the local hospitals to speak to their therapists. The owner decides to offer the therapist a $10 referral bonus for all clients sent to the clinic through the outpatient program. Recognize the conflict or potential conflict and apply conflict resolution principles. Now, this right here, apply conflict resolution principles, is directly from one of those domains in the essential physiotherapy profile that we talked about earlier. Okay, but let's take a look. So the answer key is right underneath. I'm a big believer in frameworks, especially with these, because you do want to have a very systematic approach. You do not want to be a robot. You do not want to have kind of a script at looking at these stations or these questions, but you definitely want to have a very organized approach here. So one of the frameworks we go over is recognize the conflict. I don't want to give away too much of the course, but ultimately it's a pretty easy step-by-step process where what is the connection between the persons. So in this situation, the clinic owner's influence over the physio who work with the patient at an outpatient facility at a local hospital. The therapists have influence over their patients as they are a trusted person in their care plan. Next, is there potential for financial benefit? So yeah, there is definitely potential for financial benefit if the clinic owner is paying the other therapist to refer them, right? So is there a conflict of interest? Ultimately, because you're recognizing the issue, yes, there is a conflict of interest in this scenario. The physio must not give any benefit to another person or receive benefit. So can these actions be justified? In some situations, you will find the conflict of interest actually can be justified. There are reasons or how you could kind of go about changing the scenario or changing your outcome to make it an okay situation. But in this, it's a very hard and fast rule. This is such a great examinable question because the situation presents with a conflict of interest that should be dealt with in another way. There's no way to get around giving referrals, money for a referral. So ultimately, we've recognized the framework, and then we're going to go into our conflict resolution principles. So we need to understand the issue, and that's that the clinic owner should not have any benefit to gain any benefit. We should discuss alternatives. So maybe instead of offering a bonus, the owner should try to network with therapists and educate them on what they provide, right? They could maybe provide brochures and business cards and ask to be added to the handout that should be given to patients that list other options. Okay, so there you go. That's pretty much the question that was exactly on this on the OCE example question, and it's clearly defined in one of the 11 stations that we go over just in conflict resolution. And remember, there are over 170 stations to go through. Whew. Okay.
Okay, so I don't know if that was the best one to show you, quite honestly, because we do explain to you the frameworks in the course, and then to just go and use a framework without seeing them is slightly confusing. But ultimately, you get the idea of it. You've heard me say this before. I am a very big believer in frameworks. I do feel like maybe templates is a better word, but ultimately you need to have some structured approaches to answering these type of questions, okay? And definitely getting that. Alrighty, so let's keep going here.
Okay, let's show you
I'm gonna talk again. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about our process here and be quite transparent about it with you. So we have spent months creating a course for a behavior interview. Long before the information came out from the OCE, we have been working on this. Like, if I'm being totally honest, we probably treaded lightly trying to get some stuff going for, a long time ago. And then we quickly found out that we were on the right track. So this is a long time coming. And part one is close. It's not far from being there, but I just feel like I can do it better. Like this course, I'm like, boom, boom, I feel so good. Part one, I need a little bit more time. Okay, so we reviewed called complaints, facility-wide complaints. We talked to a lot of our teachers. We talked to a lot of physios in our network to try to figure out what are the common kind of complaints or ethical situations that physios are in. We looked at ethical FAQs that were posted across all colleges. And we composed a list of 170 kind of real life practice situations that you could be asked. Okay. We also reviewed other medical exams that have the same format. Okay. There's a lot of medical exams out there that have done this already. So we were really lucky to kind of get a peek into those and understand what they did so that we could formulate a great course for you based off of things that we know have been done. We had involvement from clinicians from almost every practice area. We nailed part 2. I really think we did. I think people are going to leave that exam being like, oh, part 2 helped me so much. There was nothing I wasn't prepared for. But as I have said, part 1 needs a little bit of work. Okay. These are just some of the references. There's some references that the OCE posted. I bought all those books. I bought everything. I read them cover to cover. Like, we prepped to make sure that everything we gave you was awesome. Okay. Let's talk about pricing. So remember, there's 3 components to this course, but unfortunately part 1 is not ready. And as such, we are giving you pricing for just part 2 and the mock. Okay. I will say this, when we are ready to release the whole course, part 1 included, you'll be able to use the payment of part 2 and the mock towards that. So you don't have to pay the full amount. Okay. So part 2, as I said, you're going to have everything you need. Everything I feel you need for part 2. You will have your one-on-one mock OCE, and you'll have a 6-month subscription to this. Now, we'll talk about that 6-month subscription a little bit. Okay. So if you are taking October or November and you want help with part 1, I say reach out to me, but I'm going to tell you a little bit what my plan is for you. Ultimately, I think if you have access to the written materials, I would probably use that in the time being. If you absolutely want to kind of purchase the package now, you can. And as we're updating the classroom, you'll get all that information. But ultimately, I don't feel good about giving anyone part 1 yet. This is just people who are like absolutely need something, then maybe we can figure something out for you. And I just say this because I don't want you to feel like stranded. My best advice, use part 2 to start, like get that so down, be so confident with that. And by the time you've done that, we'll probably have part 1 ready for you. Okay. But I'm not letting anyone buy that. I know you guys are all going to twist my arm to do it. No, you can't. It's not ready. I'm not selling you something that I'm not 100% confident in. Okay. So here is a little bit more about pricing. So if you are a past student, and a past student means that you've previously registered for a full practical course. If your course was paused and you completed less than 3 live sessions, you do not pay for this course. You will not pay for part 1. I will give you access to it. Email me directly after this webinar and I will create a coupon code for you. You can go and purchase this tonight and you can have access to it, okay, for free. If you took a course with us and you finished more than 3 live sessions, you will get 50% off. So say you completed all your live sessions, you're completely done, you finished, you had your last session, we're still going to give you 50% off this, okay? I want to support our past students as much as we can. So registration eligibility pretty much is we're going to let all of our past students register today and tomorrow. From what we have left, we are then going to release it to new candidates. So we will open up all remaining spots on September 1st at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You will be emailed a link if you are in this webinar. Don't worry, you will be emailed a link on Thursday, and you will have the option to purchase this if you want, okay, for whatever spots we have left. For everyone that is here right now, write down the coupon code PT Exam Prep 50. You'll get $50 off, and you'll also have 1 year access, okay? So if you're not sure if you're doing it in March or May, don't worry, you'll have access to this. Okay, so I'm going to just go back to our little pricing. It is $749. You'll get $50 off. I think it's $49. Oh, no, I think it's $50. You get $50 off. It's no longer 6 months. It'll be 1 year if you purchase before September 8th. All past students will have the option to register as soon as this webinar is over. Okay. Do me a favor, if you do that and you take a look at it and you really like it, please email me and let me know. But yeah, that's where we're at. I'll take all the questions in the world that I can answer now. So please let me know what your questions are. Is there an audio to the course or self-reading? It is self-reading. Yeah, it's a lot of practice scenarios, a ton of practice scenarios. So some people are asking the price for part 1. I don't have that totally solid yet. We probably will be giving a discount to people who purchase part 2 and the mock. We'll probably give them a discount on the price when part 1 is added. Like you'll use your cost or what you paid towards that, but that price of the whole thing will be less for you because you've trusted us. And yeah. Okay, lots of questions. How different would part 1 be from the written exam in terms of literature used and resources? Any idea? That's a great question, and I don't know the answer to that. I think that the cases are going to be a lot of clinical reasoning based. So you absolutely have to know your written knowledge. And then on top of that, you have to be able to apply kind of treatment planning principles, case understanding principles. There's also a huge component of informed consent. And I will say informed consent and consent is actually in this part 2 course. But it's probably going to be covered in part 1, but we'll put it in part 2 for now, because it's a huge topic for those cases. So kind of digressed on your question there, but ultimately I would say, I think that you need to know everything that you did for the written, maybe not small things, like you don't got to calculate ABGs, and I don't think you need to, know your postural drainage positions, but you need to know when those treatments are indicated for sure. Okay, any resource suggestions you have for part 1 besides the PT exam prep course? Listen, I'll tell you this, if you're doing November, I do feel confident that we will have something ready for you. So start with part 2, and then part 1 will be ready in time for your November, but start with part 2. It doesn't matter which one you do first, okay? If you are doing October, there's 30 people doing October. That's it. Those are the people I don't feel like I'm going to be able to help very well. But honestly, for November and onwards, don't worry about part 1. We're doing a good job. It's just not all the way there yet. So just have some confidence. Start with part 2. Okay. Start with part 2 now. Get really good with part 2. So when we release part 1, you can kind of close that door. Remember, you do not need to book your live mock until you are ready. Okay. So don't stress about that. You can wait. Yeah, so another question is, how about part 1 for October candidates? Again, if you are doing October and you want support for that part 1, email me. Everyone else who's doing November onwards, just trust in that we'll get you that material when we can. Do I know how the OCE will be marked? I absolutely don't. And that is something that I want to be fully transparent about. I do not know how it's going to be marked. I feel very, very confident in the material that we're providing. Maybe the questions could be slightly different. We're not telling you where the marks are coming from, but ultimately, if you know that stuff, you're going to pass those. I want a little bit more information on those cases so I can make sure I'm guiding you right. Okay, some people are asking that you took the written and you received a discount code towards the practical course, and you want to know if that applies to it. So that what we're going to do is we're going to take half of your code and you can apply it to this course, and then the other half would be applied to part 1. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Can I provide part 1 cases before releasing the part 1 whole component in the course? It's going to be released all together. Part 1 will be released as it's all done. You guys have so many questions on part 1. I'm actually surprised. I think that part 2 was the harder one to prep for, to be honest, which was why we put a lot of our effort into that. It also, I think, is going to have a huge chunk of marks associated with it, maybe 50-50 potentially, but I do think that those are going to be really important to nail. So that's where we put our efforts in right now. So many questions about part 1. Will there be enough spots for non-pass students? So that's a great question. we have a lot of people that have taken our course and they're fully done and they have not had an opportunity to take an exam. Maybe they've gone to a different province. We try to be as communicative with our past students as possible, but to be honest, I don't know where those students are at. I don't know if they're waiting. I don't know if they're doing it right away. So we're asking everyone who is a past student from the practical to contact us today or tomorrow, and then we will open the remaining spots. I do think that there will be a considerable amount. We've had huge interest around this course. We understand that we're pretty much, the most reliable source at this time. So we have a ton of teachers on our kind of list that we're training to do these mock interviews. But I just don't want to open up too many spots that we can't handle right yet. So Tom's to answer your question. If you're online right at 9 o'clock on Thursday to register, I can't imagine that you wouldn't get a spot, but I just can't guarantee that. Okay, when is the clinical exam starting officially? So it's officially starting in October. It is. Again, I'm getting some questions about discounts. If you've taken the written course, reach out to us, get your coupon code. You'll be able to register because you've taken our written course. So you'll be able to register early as well. So you can register today, tomorrow. We have a coupon code ready for you. Again, half of that $200 discount will go to this course. And then we add part one, it would be the other half would be taken off that course. I'm seeing a lot of questions around that. Hopefully that makes sense. We're trying to give perks to people who have trusted us. So if you've taken our written course with us, if you've taken the practical course with us, I'm really trying to look after all of you as much as I can. You just got to communicate to me that you want this course and we'll get you going. Okay, is there any time frame that you suggest to start studying before the exam? That's a great question. So I think if you are working right now, you do have a little bit of a benefit because you have kind of gained some clinical experiences, and I think these stories will work well in that mock exam. I would say that part two, again, it all depends on like how many hours of studying you can do per week, how fast of a learner you are, what's your clinical experience. So I would say in general, I think part two and part one are going to be equal timing that you're going to need to study. If anything, I think part two might need a little bit more time because a lot of these subjects are quite new. Part one, for the most part, I think that people can rely on their clinical reasoning to at least get enough marks to pass through there. But part two, a lot of it is just very, very new material for people, crazy enough. So I would say if you were doing like a part-time-ish study plan, you would definitely be able to prep for the exams early in 2023. If you are doing like October, you're blitzing it right now. If you're doing November, again, studying quite a bit, but you'll see how fast you go through the material for sure. I saw someone say that they did not get any code. I did the written with you. No one has any codes yet. You have to reach out to us and we will email you back the code. We're making all the codes unique. So we need to get an email from you and then we will get back to you with the code so you can register right away. And the link to register. The link to register for the course is not anywhere yet. We'll be sending you the link privately and then you'll be able to register. Okay. Oh, thank you. I'm just reading Alberto's comment. With all due respect, PT exam prep course is the best to prep. I was confident taking them written with no other preparation. Double high five. Thank you. I honestly feel like my life has just been PT exam prep for a very long time lately. And I need a little bit more balance. And part of me not having part one ready for you at this time was that I needed to sleep more than 2 hours a night. I needed to see my children. I needed to let my teachers have a little bit of a pause and a break. So we're working on it. I promise. I'm doing what I can to get it to you. And again, being fully transparent, we have a good course made for part one, but it's not great. And I'm not going to give you anything unless I love it. Okay. What about students who did not take a full course, only the ethics masterclass and mock exam bundle? So no, you would have to take a full course to be considered part of getting those discounts. Okay, is there any written component in this exam? It does not appear to have any written components in it, which is good and bad, I would say. For me, I know that I am so much better at writing my thoughts than verbalizing my thoughts, which is funny because I do these webinars and I feel like I struggle because my brain and my mouth work at totally different speeds. But yeah, I don't think there is a written component. Okay. If everyone is having different exam time frames, then would there be opportunity for more spots for the prep course? So absolutely, Adriana, they're definitely, like, if we do sell out, or put a pause, I should say, we will definitely post again on social media, most likely on Instagram, when we have released more, like opened more spots. So if you don't get a spot in September, we definitely will let you know when we're opening more spots. We're treading gently. From now until 2023, we are definitely allowing a lesser amount of students to come into the course, because we appreciate we're lowering the price for a lot of you. We also appreciate that if you are paying for part 2 and the mock, when we add part 1, we're going to decrease the cost there. So we know we're probably going to have a bit more people register now, and we just want to make sure we do a great job with them. Okay. Oh, so many of you are so sweet saying you trust me. Really appreciate it. Do you know if there could be a chance that there won't be enough spots to take the OCE? It doesn't seem like it. It seems like they have a really strong plan to get people through, at least until that kind of March date. So I would feel pretty confident if I were you that you would get a spot if you are looking for one or like eligible for it. Oh, thank you so much, Headman. You guys are making my day. I can't even tell you how much that means to me. Just saying thank you. Your virtual course was awesome. Thanks for always being there. Okay, this is a great question. In the future, if I just want to purchase a mock exam, like the mock OCE, can I? No, you cannot. You'll have to purchase part 2 and it. Once we add in part 1, we actually may not separate the whole 3. You might only be able to buy the whole thing together. So if you're looking to get at least a chunk, this is the time to do it. We haven't decided if we're going to break it out, but I can definitely tell you we will not do a mock without some sort of content. And this is because we've been doing the screening interview for quite a while now. And we have had the people who take the content part of our screening interview, they nail the mock exam with us, the mock screening interview. They do a great job. We've had 100% pass rate. We're so happy with how our students have done in the screening interview. The people who have just done the screening interview and not our materials, they haven't even really gotten the most out of the interview because they're not doing it right. And so we are just saying, nope, you need to have a little bit of guidance so that you're not wasting your time during the mock screening interview, but also this. Okay. It looks that is, sorry, I'm losing my voice. It looks that might be all the questions. Does anyone else have any questions? So please be easy on me if you do send me an email after this webinar because you were either a past student of the written, a past student of the practical that didn't finish, or a full student who you did finish. Just give me a little bit of time to get back to you with your coupon code, but you will be able to register if you were a past student of ours for the written or the practical. You will be able to register tonight or tomorrow. Okay. And again, Thursday, we will open it up to everyone else. So no, there's no email going out tonight. If you are here right now and you are a past student, actually, I will send an email to remind you, but please send me an email so I can send you your coupon code. I'll send you an email and just to remind you to reply back because I need to make a unique code for everyone. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for your very, very sweet words. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I would absolutely be honored and so thankful if you could kind of share the word or spread the word about this course. Of course, after you get your spot first, and then talk, if you like it, share what your experience is. We've had very tough last few years, and definitely Ontario is what keeps us alive as we do exam prep. So I think this is why I've been so hesitant to release part 1, and I just wanted to make sure that it was perfect. And I do feel part 2 is there. So trust that if you're doing November and onwards, we will be able to prep you. I do feel strongly we can get everything to those November people. October, if you're needing some help, I'm not going to leave you hanging. Let me know. Okay. Okay, everyone, thanks so much for hanging out with me. I am likely going to have a recording of this go out on Wednesday, I think, tomorrow. But yeah, I'll look forward to seeing you all in my inbox. Okay, bye, everyone.